with absolute values. Absolute values are really interesting. All they are is they're taking some number and if it's negative or positive and make it just positive. So think about this. It's kind of like if you walk a certain distance to somewhere and then you walk back a certain distance and you walk in the same direction. And so technically you're walking negative back. So, but you can't really have a negative number, negative steps. So you put an absolute value over it or from it, and it gives you a positive number. So you actually walked from there to here. So let's try some examples here. So one example is, well, absolute value is first. Let's do that. Is this guy right here. It has two bars. So these two bars means that if you, these are absolute value bars. So for example, let's do this. Let's take the absolute value of -3. But the absolute value of -3 is just 3. So now, what about we take the absolute value of -4? Well, the absolute value of -4 is just 4. Well, if we take the absolute value of just 3, well, the difference is negative, but it doesn't matter. It's just going to come out 3. So let's do an example. Let's do an example here. So let's say that we have negative on the outside and we have -3 on the inside. So we know from this one right here that if you take this away, you just have 3. But that negative is on the outside. So this is going to be 3, but this negative has to come down to be -3. So let's do another couple of examples. Let's do another couple of examples here. Let's say we have -5 plus 4. So you have so absolute value. So let's try this. Um, we always want to do the absolute values first. So this one has a negative on the outside. So don't worry about that negative yet. You know what? You can just put it right down. But what's the absolute value of -5? Well, remember it's 5. But remember, absolute value of -5 is 5. But we have this negative come down. That's part of it. So keep going. Absolute value of 4 is 4. So now you can go -5 plus 4 is -1. So your answer is -1. And that's really all the absolute value is. So let's look at the graph. Because I always tell my students, you need to know basic graphs. And you need to know that what this absolute value is meaning. Why do we get a negative and a positive value out of it? And that's why I always like to show this to my students. So if you don't know how to graph yet, I have videos for that, but let's see if you pick it up before you get some graphing done, okay? So we're going to take y equals the absolute value of x. So this is our basic graph of an absolute value function. So we're going to take a table of values. So table of values looks like this. And we're going to put x's here and we're going to put y's here. So you're independent, you're d-dependent. So let's pick some values. So let's pick -3. Let's pick -2 and -1. And let's pick 0. So if you put -3 into the absolute value, like this, -3 absolute value, we know it's going to be 3. So if we put -2 in for x, well, that's just -2. Absolute value of that is 2. And you can kind of see the pattern, really. That's to be positive. What's the absolute value of 0? It's just 0. It's just 0. So you can kind of see the pattern now. So what's the absolute value of 1? Well, it's just 1. So let's take this information here and plug it into an x and y graph. So here we go. Here's your X and Y graph. So let's remember, call this the x-axis. This is the y-axis. So you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we want to go how many high? 3. 1, 2, 3. And look on the bottom. Do you see as there's no negatives on for the y? So we don't really need the bottom at all. So if you've never done graphing before, I do have videos that will help you and do this. So remember, we always start with x's first. So x goes from -3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go up 3. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go -3 over, and then we're going to go up 3. So about right there. So that's that one. Next one, -2 over, up 2. And then -1 over, up 1. Well, 0, 0 is at the origin. So that's 0, 0. 1, 1, we go over 1, up 1. So we're about right there. And then what do you think the next number is going to be? Well, we plug in 2, we get the absolute value of 2 is just 2, right? So here's 2, we're going to go up 2. As you can see, there's a pattern going on here, and that's what I want you to understand. There's a pattern. So the next number should be 3, 3, if this was scaled right. So if you connect these dots, you will see as there's kind of like a V. So V is right here now. So the idea is that the absolute value is going to take on, well, at -2, we have -2. At 0, we have 0. So that's the graph. It's never negative below here. So it's going to be always, so if you take the absolute value of -3, but here's -3 over here, and the output is just going to be +3. So when you take the absolute value, really, it's always positive. But if you do the graph, you can see there's a negative and a positive side. So we will get into more of solving equations with absolute values on the next lesson. So I hope this helped a little bit. I understand if you don't know how to graph yet, I do have other videos that will show you how to graph. And we will spend a lot of time with this because this is pretty hard for students, especially if you don't know the formula and you don't know the steps to take. So hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, well, just remember, math is about practice. You have to practice this all the time. You can't just practice it for 2 hours one day and let it go for another week. No, keep practicing it because the more you do it, the better you're going to get. I promise. I hope this helped. Thank you.